What's up, friends? Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video because today I'm going to be giving you my nine tips for online learning and working. If you don't want to take tips from someone that put up 6 fingers instead of 9, I totally understand. You can click off now. So in the spirit of a pandemic, I don't mean to gloss that over and make it sound good because it's not, but obviously a lot of people these days are working from home, have been working from home, and or are doing school online or in some sort of virtual setting, whether it's at home or somewhere else. And as someone who kind of thrives in that environment, I thought I would give my advice on how to kind of best set yourself up for success. So a lot of these tips can either be applied to someone in a school setting, more probably like high school to college, or if you are working from home. You may have been working from home for a while now, but maybe you're struggling, you need some advice. I'm here to try to provide some insight today. I know a lot of these tips are probably going to be like, well, duh. But sometimes it's just those things that you need to hear it to kind of have it ingrained in your memory where it's like, yeah, it's obvious you should do X, Y, and Z, but just because it's obvious doesn't mean that you do it or that you're going to stick to it. So I'm just here to collectively put my thoughts about working and doing school online from home in one video. But real quick before I get started, it's really important to note that of course I'm aware that not everyone has access to the same resources right now, which includes having a safe and positive work environment as well as the technology to succeed. And on top of that, just given the whole situation of why we have to be working at home and then having to put yourself in a situation that maybe you're not used to, like being on camera in front of classmates or coworkers for long periods of time, it's just, there's so much potential for anxiety, and I totally recognize that not everyone is in the same position, and I feel very privileged that I can, one, be able to do work and school at home in a safe environment, and also just the fact that, like I said, I thrive in these environments, and I know that it's not the same for everyone else, and it sucks that there's a lot going wrong in this country right now, and there's probably a lot of areas in which our government could do better, you know, especially like the K through 12 and even like pre-K and kindergarten and childcare centers. There's so much more that could be done to help those individuals succeed in school, online, or wherever they are this year. So I just wanted to put that statement out there. I know there's a lot of different resources for a lot of different states and school districts and communities, and it'd be impossible for me to be like, oh, like check the description for like resources, because resources in my area aren't going to be the same resources in your area. I'm sure a lot of parents already probably know the deal with things, but just in case, I know like school district websites have a lot of valuable information about places you can potentially be doing, your kids can be doing school online in another facility if you can't be home to take care of them. I know that there's camps that are opening up or remaining open longer than summer camps, so they can provide just a space for kids to have school. And I know that there's been a lot of important changes regarding like the National School Lunch Program and kids having access to food even though they're not physically in the school environment. So hopefully some of that information is useful to you, and if it's not, perhaps it just makes you aware of the situation for a lot of people in this country. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into the video with my 9 tips for working or learning from home. Tip number 1 is to create an enjoyable workspace for yourself. Of course, that's going to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. At least for me, I mean, I'm sure there's some people who just want to like have an empty, clear space. They don't want distractions, and that's totally cool. But for me, I find that having things around me that bring me joy makes it easier to feel comfortable in my environment, if that makes sense. So I figured I'll just give you a little desk tour. It's really nothing fancy. If you saw my last video, you know that I ended up moving my desk into this like weird corner of my room, so I have like a somewhat plain backdrop as opposed to when my bed was in my background, so I don't recommend that, but if you have to do it, you have to do it. Who cares? So one thing that I definitely enjoy having on my desk is some sort of plant. The fact that it's in a dinosaur pot makes it even more adorable. I really love candles, whether they're on my desk or just somewhere in the room. Having that sensory feeling of smell I think is very pleasant. I do have a full bookshelf of my books, but I do like having the books that I'm kind of like currently reading on my desk, or books that I just want like quick access to if I need them, and it kind of just looks aesthetically pleasing. I have a lot of little skulls. I don't know why. That's just whatever. Don't worry about it. Of course, I have a little corner for all of my textbooks and notebooks that I'm using. Of course, my computer and my monitor, which I will get into in a second. And then my planner is attached to me at all times. And then just for funsies, I have my little squishy llama guy. Okay, so tip number 2 is that you should definitely try your best to schedule breaks for yourself. And for those breaks, make sure that you're getting up out of your seat and either moving around or just going into a different room. It's probably super tempting to, if you're between classes or between meetings or between assignments and you're like, oh, like I have 10 or 15 minutes to spare, like let me just hop on my phone and check social media. That's good and great because in these times you need to try and get as much social interaction as you can, but at the same time, it's just forcing you to sit longer, and it's really important that you get up, move your body a little bit, stretch, do what you need to do so you feel refreshed for the next activity that you have planned. Tip number 3. So building kind of on top of tip number 2 is that I really like to try and do activities that aren't school or work related outside of my room, because for me, my desk is in my bedroom. Some people might have an office, some people might be working at their dining room table, some people might be working on their family room floor. Whatever your space or your work environment is, I think it's very beneficial to, if you're eating breakfast or eating lunch, dinner, snacks, calling a friend, exercising, try and get out of the space that you're in, because believe me, as I'm sure a lot of people know who have been working from home, you can get a little stir crazy sitting in the same spot for long periods of time. And this is definitely something that I know I don't even do all the time, because whenever I eat like lunch and dinner, I enjoy watching like YouTube or catching up on TV shows, and which I would do that on my computer at my desk, sometimes in my bed. Not proud of that one. And even exercising too. Right now, like I exercise in my bedroom because it's what's most convenient for me, but I'm hoping to have a space somewhere else in my house very soon. But yeah, just moving around between different rooms makes life feel just a little bit more normal, as if you were just moving around through different rooms as you would throughout the day in school or at work, possibly. Tip number 4. As you guys saw, I have a water bottle on my desk pretty much at all times. This is just a tip, even like say there's no pandemic and you have like a full-time desk job or at school. Having water at your desk is so important, because me personally, I have heard a lot of other people say this too, you kind of just forget to stay hydrated, and you're also like me and you constantly have coffee on your desk. I don't know where mine is, but I normally have coffee on my desk at all times as well, which just makes me feel more dehydrated, and suddenly it's like 6 hours later, I'm like, oh, my mouth's really dry. I should drink some water. And it just makes you feel a whole lot better. And little tip on top of that too, I find that having like an easy drinkable cap helps, because I used to have a water bottle that I used to have to screw it off and then drink, and it sounds crazy, but it really just helps if you can pick something up and immediately just drink it, or if you have like a tumbler cup with a straw. And I know I'm not crazy, I've heard other people say that too. Tip number 5. So this tip I know falls into the whole I'm in a privileged situation kind of thing, but I wanted to include it just in case because it has helped me so much, is having a second monitor. And the only reason I have a second monitor is because my grandpa recently got like a laptop or something and no longer needed his computer, and for some reason my mom had it. I don't know. It's a really old monitor, but it does wonders for having to like kind of be looking at multiple screens at once, which is an issue for me both in what I do for work and what I do for school. If you happen to have access to a second monitor, I highly recommend you get one. I haven't really been out to any Goodwills or Second and Charles type places recently, but I'd imagine potentially they could have extra monitors, or check eBay or just local like Facebook groups to see if anyone's getting rid of stuff, because by no means do you need like some brand new fancy monitor unless you're into that kind of thing. Tip number 6, and I actually mean 6 this time, is another one that probably seems just really stupidly obvious, but stick to a schedule. And if you're in a situation where maybe you're in high school or you're a parent and you have a kid who's used to being in a school environment, I think this one is really important. Waking up at the same time every day relatively, having meals around the same time. In high school and have certain lunch breaks, or if you're a parent of a younger kid and they normally have recess, try and create a schedule and stick to it as much as you can Monday through Friday. I know that's a really hard like balancing act to do when you are a parent of children and have a lot of stuff going on, but it does really help in the long run. Even if, like for me, I try and wake up at 7 o'clock every day, where technically I don't have class until 4 p.m. so if I wanted to sleep until like 3:30 I could, but no matter how tired I feel at 7 a.m. I still make myself get up, then I'll exercise, then I'll eat, and then I'll start doing work, and then take a break for lunch, and then do more work, and then class, and then dinner. I have a really big workload right now, and I think if I didn't keep to a schedule, I don't know, I wouldn't be making this video right now, that's for sure. Tip number 7. I think I said this in my last video, but I just wanted to reiterate that getting dressed as if you are leaving the house is very helpful, because it's super easy to just kind of crawl out of bed, keep your pajamas on, as long as you look presentable on Zoom from like here up, who cares what you're wearing underneath. But for me, it does bring some normalcy back to my day. It's just a kind of one of those things, like a self-care thing that makes you feel good. I don't know, maybe I'm weird for that, and I don't do my hair and makeup every day. No, I didn't do that pre-pandemic, but just putting on something other than what I sleep in makes me feel, I guess, a little more excited to start my day. And also, like, side tip to that one is try not to Zoom in bed. One, it just looks kind of weird. Like, I have class with some people who are clearly just like laying in bed on Zoom with their cameras on. I'm like, does that make you, like, your professor sees you in bed, is that not weird? Or like your manager sees you in bed. By no means, I don't want to judge anyone. You do you. However, if I were to do my Zoom or work, any sort of work in bed, I fall asleep. That's just what it is. Like, even when I try and read in bed for fun, like at night, I fall asleep. Tip number 8. This one, again, building on top of previous tips and also just like probably kind of obvious, is to organize your day as much as you can. And for me personally, making lists is extremely helpful. And even if you don't make lists, if you have some sort of planner or a notepad where you can just kind of plan things out day by day, I highly recommend you try and do that. I could probably do an entire video on planners and organizing and to-do lists, but for the sake of a shorter video, because my last video was 30 minutes long, I just want to keep it short and sweet and say that having some sort of method of organizing your day, which for me includes organizing what I have to do in the day, what homework I have to do, what work I have to do, and meals and exercise, is like a game changer. Again, if I didn't have my planner and lists, I wouldn't be making this video. And tip number 9. Honestly, probably one of the most important tips that I can give to you is to not overwork yourself. It is extremely easy being at home to just have this like endless cycle of working, getting up early, logging in at 8 a.m. and then like not logging out and stop doing work until 8 p.m. And that's not what you would, for the general like 9 to 5 type of whatever. That's not what you would do if you were in your normal work environment. And this is something like I definitely don't live by this rule, unfortunately. This entire week I feel like I've been working like 11 or 12-hour days, and that's not okay because it makes me feel very exhausted and sometimes a little crazy. If your job doesn't already require that you work really long hours like that, try to keep to that schedule and try not to let yourself work longer than you would just because you don't have to get in your car and beat traffic home and all that. And for some people that might mean setting alarms, you can set timers. There's probably a bunch of different ways that you can keep yourself on task and not working longer than you have to. So whatever works best for you, you should do. Alright guys, that pretty much concludes this video. I hope some of these tips or words of wisdom were helpful to you in any sort of way, or if they're not helpful to you, maybe you know someone that could benefit by watching this video. Regardless of whether this video was helpful to you or not, I imagine if you clicked on this video, it's because you were interested in what I had to say. I don't know why you'd be watching this necessarily if you didn't need to hear all this. But anyway, regardless, I hope that everyone is having a easy, fun, safe, educational start to their school year. And of course, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up if you want. Subscribe if you want. I'm making videos anyway. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.